Commander Aiden Carter leaned back in his chair aboard the Galactic Alliance cruiser Vigilant, a frown creasing his forehead as he listened to the latest reports from the fringe sectors. Next to him, his second-in-command, Lieutenant Kyle Briggs, monitored the communications array, his expression equally grim. "Commander, we've got another rogue faction sighting," Kyle announced, handing over a digital tablet displaying their coordinates. "They're moving dangerously close to human space." Aiden took the tablet, studying the trajectory. "The Zarek again? Haven't they learned their lesson from the last skirmish?" "It seems desperation outweighs memory, sir. They're hell-bent on probing human defenses," Kyle replied, his tone laced with concern. Aiden stood, pacing the length of the command deck. "Set a course, Lieutenant. We need to intercept them before they cross the boundary. Initiate stealth mode. Let's not advertise our presence." As the ship hummed quietly into action, Aiden tapped into the ship's intercom. "All hands, this is Commander Carter. Prepare for a potential engagement. I want everyone at their stations and ready for a swift operation." The crew of the Vigilant responded with practiced efficiency, a testament to their many years under Aiden's command. The cruiser slipped through space, cloaked in shadows and silence, nearing the coordinates of the rogue Zarek ships. "Visuals coming up on screen," Kyle said, bringing up the live feed. The screen flickered to life, showing a small fleet of battered ships pushing forward through the asteroid belt. "They're really going for it," muttered Sergeant Rolf Jensen, the tactical officer, as he joined Aiden and Kyle at the command console. "Humans won't hesitate to strike. This could get bloody quickly." Aiden nodded, his eyes never leaving the screen. "Open a channel to the Zarek fleet," he ordered. A moment later, the comms officer signaled success. "Channel open, Commander." "This is Commander Aiden Carter of the Galactic Alliance," Aiden began, his voice firm and authoritative. "You are approaching restricted space. Divert your course immediately." The reply was a mix of static and desperation. "This is Captain Morale of the Zarek. We seek asylum from persecution. We mean no harm to humans or anyone else." Aiden exchanged a skeptical look with Kyle. "Asylum is not found in human territories. You know the laws." "We have no choice," Captain Morale's voice crackled through. The transmission abruptly cut off, replaced by the whining screech of alarms. "They've been detected by a human outpost," Rolf announced, his voice tense. On the screen, the first signs of human retaliation were visible. A bright lance of energy shot from the outpost, striking the lead Zarek ship, which erupted in a catastrophic display of light and debris. "Damn it! Move us in. Try to hail the humans. Tell them we're handling it," Aiden commanded, clenching his fists. Kyle worked the communications array feverishly. "No response, Commander. They're not answering. They won't talk. Not while they're engaged," Aiden muttered, turning to his crew. "Prepare for retrieval and rescue operations. We need to get those Zarek off their ships before there's nothing left to save." As the Vigilant moved closer to the debris field, the gravity of their mission weighed heavily on everyone aboard. They were not only there to enforce the law, but to save lives, even if it meant risking their own. "We're approaching the first ship," Kyle reported, his voice steady despite the rising tension. "Deploy the rescue teams," Aiden ordered, his gaze fixed on the unfolding tragedy outside. "Every second counts." The teams worked quickly, maneuvering through the debris and extracting any survivors from the crippled Zarek ships. Each life saved was a small victory in the vast, unforgiving expanse of space. As the rescue operation continued, Aiden couldn't help but wonder about the human capacity for destruction and what drove the Zarek to such desperation. But those were questions for another time. Right now, there were lives to save. The Vigilant hummed through the emptiness of space, the aftermath of the rescue operation still weighing heavily on the crew. In the briefing room, Commander Aiden Carter sat across from Lieutenant Kyle Briggs, reviewing the data collected from the Zarek survivors. The room was tense, the air thick with the unspoken acknowledgement of how close they had come to a diplomatic disaster. According to the survivors, the Zarek were fleeing a civil war, driven to desperation, Kyle said, scrolling through the reports on his tablet. They thought if they could demonstrate their plight to the humans, they might garner sympathy, maybe even support. Aiden rubbed his chin thoughtfully. Human territories are the wrong place to seek sympathy. This law exists for a reason. Our history with them is written in the blood of countless civilizations. The Zarek's ignorance could have cost them everything. Sergeant Rolf Jensen joined them, his face grim. We've intercepted a communication from the human military command. They've increased their patrols along the border and issued a stern warning to the Alliance about controlling our own. This incident could tighten tensions across sectors, Aiden mused. We need to send a message to all Alliance members reiterating the law. Do not approach humans. The stakes are too high. Kyle nodded in agreement. I'll draft the message. What about the Zarek? What's to be done with them? They'll be resettled. I'll arrange a meeting with the Alliance Council to find them a safe haven. They're victims in this, after all, Aiden decided, his voice firm with resolve. The door to the briefing room slid open, and a young communications officer stepped in, a note of urgency in his step. Commander, we've received a distress signal. It's urgent, coded for top-level attention. Aiden stood immediately, his expression turning serious. On screen, officer. The main screen flickered to life, displaying a scrambled video feed. The image stabilized to reveal a haggard-looking alien with the distinctive markings of a Zarek leader. This is High Counselor Varn of the Zarek. Our people are under attack by an unknown force. We request immediate assistance. Coordinates attached. The transmission ended as abruptly as it had begun, leaving the room in stunned silence. Aiden turned to his crew, his decision clear. Set a course for these coordinates. Prepare for a combat search and rescue operation. We're not letting the Zarek face this alone. As the Vigilant adjusted its trajectory, Kyle approached Aiden, concern evident on his face. Do you think this unknown force could be human? It's a possibility, Aiden admitted, his eyes dark with the weight of command. But our primary concern is the safety of the Zarek. We'll handle the humans if we need to. The ship sped through space, its engines glowing faintly against the cosmic backdrop. As they neared the coordinates, Rolf updated the tactical displays, highlighting potential threats and strategic points. Commander, we're approaching the conflict zone, Rolf announced, his voice tense with anticipation. Red alert. Shields up. I want full scans of the area. Let's not fly into this blind, Aiden ordered, stepping onto the bridge. The crew members moved with practiced efficiency, their faces set with determination. The scanners soon revealed the grim reality, a small Zarek colony under siege by a fleet of sleek, aggressive ships, their designs unfamiliar and menacing. Those aren't human ships, Rolf noted, studying the readouts. No, but that doesn't make them any less dangerous, Aiden responded, his gaze fixed on the viewer. Launch fighters, protect those civilians. We're here to save lives. As the fighters deployed, Aiden felt the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with battle. This was what the Vigilant was made for, to defend the defenseless and uphold the fragile peace of the galaxy. But as the first shots were fired, Aiden knew that this mission might change everything they thought they knew about the universe and their place within it. Back aboard the Vigilant, in the dim light of his private quarters, Commander Aiden Carter pored over the ancient texts and digital archives of human history. His face was illuminated only by the glow of the screen, which displayed pages after pages of war campaigns, peace treaties that were little more than pauses between conflicts, and technological advancements born out of necessity. Lieutenant Kyle Briggs entered quietly, handing Aiden a steaming cup of coffee. Thought you might need this, he said, eyeing the scattered data pads and ancient artifacts of human history that littered the desk. Thanks, Kyle, Aiden muttered, accepting the drink gratefully. Every time I think I've seen the full extent of human warfare, I find something new. A forgotten skirmish, a revolutionary weapon. It's endless. Kyle sat across from him, his brows furrowed. Their capacity for war, it's almost like a form of art for them, isn't it? It's more than that, Aiden replied, scrolling through another document. It's survival. Every tool, strategy, and weapon was crafted not just to win, but to ensure they never faced the same threat twice. Look here. He gestured to a hologram displaying a human-designed fortress. Even their architecture speaks of defiance and durability. A soft chime interrupted them, signaling an incoming transmission. Kyle toggled the switch, and the stern face of General Carthy, their direct superior in the Galactic Alliance, appeared on the screen. Commander Carter, Lieutenant Briggs, General Carthy began, his voice stern. I trust you have updates regarding the Zarek incident? Aiden straightened, switching the screen from the historical archives to their mission brief. Yes, sir. We've discovered the attacking forces were not human but another unknown alien species. We're still gathering intelligence on their motives and capabilities. Understood, General Carthy nodded. But this incident underscores the need for vigilance. Our archives on human warfare tactics might provide insight into dealing with new threats. What have you learned that could help? Aiden paused, considering his words carefully. Humans were unpredictable in war, General. They adapted quickly and struck hard. Their history shows that they valued the element of surprise and overwhelming force. Apply those principles. Adapt and anticipate, Carter. Keep me informed. The General's image flickered out as the transmission ended. Turning back to Kyle, Aiden sighed deeply. We need to be one step ahead, not just reacting to threats. Let's review our strategy. How can we incorporate human tactics into our defense? Kyle nodded, pulling up tactical simulations on his tablet. We could start with their guerrilla warfare techniques. Hit-and-run tactics, using our smaller ships to harass the enemy, cutting off their supply lines, sowing confusion. Yes, and let's not forget psychological warfare, Aiden added, remembering a particular chapter from the human military doctrine. Humans were masters at undermining enemy morale. We need to understand our new enemy's culture, find what shakes them, use it against them. For hours they worked together, drawing from humanity's war-ridden past, crafting a new approach to galactic peacekeeping. Aiden felt a strange admiration for the humans, a species that had so fiercely carved a place for themselves in the universe through sheer will and unmatched strategic thinking. As dawn approached, painting soft light on the distant stars outside his window, Aiden finally leaned back in his chair. We're not just learning about them, we're learning from them, he mused aloud. Kyle looked up, his expression thoughtful. Let's just hope we don't have to learn everything the hard way, like they did. Aiden nodded solemnly, the weight of leadership heavy on his shoulders. The galaxy's safety might just depend on us understanding a species that once nearly tore itself apart to build a future. Maybe this time history can guide us to a better path. The command center of the Vigilant was unusually quiet as Commander Aiden Carter and Lieutenant Kyle Briggs prepared to meet with the human mercenary who might hold insights into not just human military strategies, but also the current unknown alien threat. As the hatch opened, a tall figure stepped through, his stride confident yet wary. This was Captain Jack Donovan, a man whose reputation was a blend of myth and reality, a survivor of countless conflicts across the galaxy. Captain Donovan, Aiden extended his hand, a gesture of peace and respect among many cultures, including humans. Jack accepted the handshake, his grip firm. Commander Carter, Lieutenant Briggs, he nodded to each. I hear you're looking to understand more about human tactics. That's correct, Aiden replied, guiding Jack to a seat. We've faced a new enemy, one that isn't human but is aggressive and unknown. Your expertise could be invaluable. Jack's eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of interest flickering across his face. You want to know how humans would handle them, huh? Kyle chimed in. Exactly. You've fought alongside and against various species. Your experience could help us prepare for what's next. Jack leaned back, considering their words. All right, I'll tell you. But you might not like what you hear. Humans didn't just fight, they outthought their enemies. It wasn't about having the best weapons, though that helped. It was about using what you had in ways no one expected. Aiden listened intently, aware of the gravity each word held. Can you give us an example? Sure, Jack began, his voice taking on the tone of a seasoned storyteller. There was a battle, years ago, on a planet with dense fog all year round. Visibility was almost zero. The enemy relied on infrared, something they thought we didn't know. We coated our suits and weapons with a material that masked our heat signatures, moved right through them like ghosts. Kyle was quick to see the implications. Adaptability and intelligence gathering. Exactly, Jack confirmed. But there's more to it. Humans were good at psychological warfare too. They'd broadcast transmissions, fake orders, sow discord. By the time the real attack came, the enemy was already breaking from within. Aiden considered this. Psychological warfare, using the enemy's strengths against them. How would you suggest we apply this to our current situation? Jack thought for a moment before replying. Learn their patterns, their culture, fear, pride, trust. These are levers. If you can manipulate them, you can control the battlefield before the first shot is fired. As the discussion deepened, Aiden realized they were not just learning about tactics. They were delving into the psyche of one of the most formidable species the galaxy had ever known. Jack's insights were a window into a complex, often contradictory nature, capable of great loyalty and devastating betrayal. Thank you, Captain Donovan, Aiden said as their meeting drew to a close. Your knowledge gives us a new perspective, not just on our enemies, but on our allies too. Jack stood, ready to leave. Just remember, Commander, In war, the line between hero and villain is often drawn by the survivors. With that, he left, leaving Aiden and Kyle to ponder the depth of his words. The Vigilant was not just armed with weapons, but with knowledge, and in the vast, unpredictable galaxy, that was a more powerful arsenal than any other. As they prepared to put Jack's advice into practice, both knew that the real test was still to come. How they applied these human strategies could very well determine the fate of many, not just the Zarek or the Alliance, but potentially other civilizations that might one day call upon the Vigilant for aid. In the dim light of the early hours, Commander Aiden Carter stood in the command deck of the Vigilant, staring out into the abyss of space. The recent discussions with Jack Donovan had ignited a spark of strategy that he knew needed action. Beside him, Lieutenant Kyle Briggs was preparing the final details of what would be their most audacious mission yet. "Kyle, are all teams briefed and ready?" Aiden asked, his voice low, laden with the weight of the impending operation. Kyle nodded, tapping through the data on his tablet. "Yes, sir. All units are on standby. We have our best pilots and soldiers prepped. The tech team has also rigged up some decoys based on Donovan's advice, ready to broadcast false signals to throw off any scans." Aiden took a deep breath, feeling the familiar surge of adrenaline that came with command decisions. "And the council? How did they take our plan?" With a rueful smile, Kyle replied, "About as well as you'd expect. They're not happy about us going rogue, but I've managed to convince them that this is the best way to uncover the full capabilities of this unknown enemy." "Good work." Aiden clasped Kyle's shoulder briefly, a gesture of gratitude and camaraderie. "This mission isn't just about gathering intel anymore. It's about making sure that we're not sitting ducks, waiting for the next attack." As the ship's alarm signaled readiness, they moved to the strategy room where the rest of the team was assembling. The air was charged with a tense anticipation as Aiden addressed the crew. "Everyone, you know what's at stake," he began, his gaze meeting the eyes of each team member. "This unknown enemy is not just a threat to the Zarek or to us, but to the stability of the sectors near human space. Our mission is to infiltrate, gather intel, and get out before they know what hit them." A specialist in alien technologies, Sergeant Mara Jensen, spoke up. "Sir, the decoys are set to mimic typical human commercial vessels. If these attackers are monitoring the area for human activity, they should draw their attention long enough for us to slip past their patrols." Aiden nodded in approval. "Exactly. Once we're in, I need everyone to be sharp. We're looking for anything. Weapon capabilities, fleet numbers, command structure. The more we know, the better prepared we'll be." The crew dispersed to their stations, each person aware of their role in the intricate dance of stealth and subterfuge. Aiden and Kyle took their positions at the command console as the Vigilant began its silent creep towards enemy territory. Hours passed as they maneuvered through space, avoiding known patrol lanes and using the cover of asteroid fields. The tension on the bridge was palpable. Every crew member knew that the smallest mistake could lead to a catastrophic encounter. Finally, they reached the target zone. The sensors officer, Lieutenant Hargrove, whispered into the comm, "Targets in range, Commander. Decoys deployed." On the main screen, the decoy vessels began broadcasting their signals, simple loops of mundane commercial traffic chatter. Almost immediately, blips appeared on the radar, enemy ships moving to intercept. "Now's our chance," Aiden murmured. "Take us in, nice and slow. All systems dark." The Vigilant glided forward, the vastness of space cloaking its movements. As they bypassed the distracted enemy fleet, Aiden felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. They were in the heart of the unknown, and every moment brought new risks. Suddenly, the proximity alarm blared. "Incoming craft, small, fast, looks like a scout," Hargrove announced urgently. "Evasive maneuvers now," Aiden ordered. The ship banked sharply, the dark expanse of space spinning around them as they dodged the incoming fire. "Hold on, everyone!" Kyle shouted over the roar of the engines and the distant thuds of near misses. The Vigilant danced through space, narrowly avoiding the scout's aggressive pursuits. After what felt like an eternity, the enemy craft broke off, leaving them once again alone in the silent expanse. Breathing heavily, Aiden looked around at his crew, their faces a mix of relief and determination. "Good work, team. Let's not waste this second chance. Continue the mission." As they moved deeper into enemy territory, the Vigilant was not just a ship. It was a bearer of hope, a spear into the heart of darkness, each member united under a common cause: to protect, to learn, and to survive. As the Vigilant descended into the atmosphere of the enigmatic planet where the unknown aggressors were suspected to have their base, the sky turned a heavy, ominous gray. It was as if the planet itself was warning them of the dangers lurking below. Commander Aiden Carter stood by the main viewport, observing the churning clouds. "Keep the cloaking device on until we hit the surface. We can't afford to be spotted now," he instructed Lieutenant Kyle Briggs, who was coordinating the navigation and stealth systems. Kyle nodded, his fingers flying over the control panel. "Cloaking is at full capacity. We're invisible to their radars, but remember, sir, it won't help against visual identification." Aiden acknowledged with a grim nod. "Understood. Let's hope this storm provides the additional cover we need." The Vigilant gently rocked as it passed through the turbulent layers of the atmosphere. Sergeant Mara Jensen, who was monitoring the ship's advanced sensors, called out, "Commander, I'm picking up traces of heavy metal alloys and ionized particles approximately 30 clicks to the northwest. It's consistent with large-scale energy weapon capabilities." "That must be the site." Aiden's voice was steady, but his mind raced with the implications. "Plot a course, Mara. Let's set down within 2 clicks of that position. We'll go in on foot with stealth gear." The team quickly prepared for ground deployment, donning their high-tech combat suits equipped with adaptive camouflage that mimicked the rocky terrain. Each member was armed with energy weapons and had orders to maintain radio silence unless absolutely necessary. As they trekked towards the target, the wind howled around them, carrying a mix of alien scents and the electric charge of a pending storm. The environment was foreboding, but the soldiers moved with precision, guided by Aiden's calm certainty. Reaching a ridge overlooking the base, the team crouched low. Below them sprawled a complex of buildings and hangars, surrounded by patrolling drones and guarded by towering sentries that seemed to blend mechanically and organically, alien technology far beyond what they had anticipated. "We need to find a way in, gather all the intel we can, and get out without a firefight," Aiden whispered, surveying the layout. "Kyle, Mara, you're with me. We'll enter through the eastern hangar. It appears to be less guarded." They moved carefully, avoiding patrols and using the intermittent bolts of lightning as cover for their movements. The hangar doors were surprisingly unsecured, perhaps a sign of the enemy's arrogance or lack of perceived threat. Inside, the hangar was dimly lit and expansive, filled with alien crafts that featured technology Aiden had never seen. Kyle, who had a background in engineering, couldn't hide his awe. "This tech, it's generations ahead of anything we've got. Even the hull materials are unknown to us." Aiden's eyes remained focused on the mission. "Take samples if you can, but remember, we're not here to marvel. We need actionable intel." They pressed deeper into the base, eventually coming across a control room. Aiden and his team slipped inside, finding it empty. They quickly began to download data from the consoles. "Commander, look at this." Mara pointed to a holographic map that flickered to life. It showed not just this base, but a network of similar outposts spread across the galaxy. "They're more than we feared, much more." The data transfer was painfully slow, each second stretching longer as the risk of discovery grew. Suddenly, an alarm blared, and the room was bathed in red light. They had been detected. "Abort! We need to move now," Aiden commanded as they grabbed the partially downloaded data. The team dashed out of the control room, dodging security personnel who were now swarming the area. Back outside, the storm had escalated, and lightning cracked across the sky. The Vigilant, remotely piloted by Lieutenant Hargrove, descended through the chaos to extract the team just as enemy fire began to zero in on their position. Once aboard, Aiden took a deep breath, looking at his team, all accounted for and safe. The data they had secured was incomplete, but potentially critical. "We've got what we came for. Let's get this information back to the Alliance. They need to see this." As the Vigilant ascended, leaving the hostile planet behind, the gravity of their discovery weighed heavily on Aiden. They had seen the heart of chaos, and it was vast and expanding. Now, it was a race against time to prepare for what was surely coming. Commander Aiden Carter stood on the command bridge of the Vigilant, his gaze fixed on the forward screens displaying the eerie green planet where the enemy's base lay hidden. Around him, the tension was palpable, a silent testament to the gravity of their mission. "Status report," Aiden said crisply, his voice cutting through the low hum of the ship's systems. Lieutenant Kyle Briggs, monitoring the tactical display, replied without turning. "We're in position, sir. The enemy base is active, but they haven't detected us yet. Stealth systems are holding." Aiden nodded, then turned to face Sergeant Mara Jensen, who was checking her gear one last time. "Mara, once we're inside, how long will you need?" Mara, ever the precise soldier, answered, 15 minutes to plant the explosives, another 5 to exfiltrate. Any longer, and we risk the whole operation. Understood. Kyle, you'll lead the diversion. Hit them hard, but keep it contained. We can't afford to draw too much attention. Kyle gave a grim nod. Loud and flashy, but quick. We'll make sure they're too busy to notice Mara's team. As the plan was set in motion, Aiden felt the familiar weight of command settle on his shoulders. Each order could save a life or spell disaster. He watched as Mara and her team suited up and moved to the airlock, disappearing from sight with their equipment in tow. The operation began with Kyle's team launching a barrage of coordinated attacks on the base's outer defenses, causing explosions that lit up the planet's surface. As the enemy scrambled to respond, Mara's team slipped through the perimeter, using the chaos to mask their entry. Inside the enemy base, Mara moved with lethal efficiency. Her team disabled security systems, avoided patrols, and planted the explosive charges around the crucial structural points. Every second was critical, and her focus was absolute. Meanwhile, Aiden coordinated the overall effort from the Vigilant, his eyes flicking between screens that showed both the progress of the assault and Mara's secretive advance. Suddenly, an alarm blared. "Sir, the enemy is launching countermeasures," one of the operators announced, his voice tense. "Kyle, status?" Aiden demanded. "We've drawn more attention than anticipated, sir. They're mobilizing reinforcements. Our window is closing fast." Aiden's mind raced. "Pull back gradually. Maintain pressure, but start the retreat. We need to give Mara more time." As Kyle's forces began their calculated withdrawal, the base's internal security tightened. Mara's comms crackled to life. "Charges set, moving to exfil point," she reported, breathless but controlled. "Understood, Sergeant. Extraction team is on standby," Aiden responded, his voice calm despite the escalating situation. The next minutes were agonizing. Aiden watched as Mara's signal moved slowly back towards the perimeter. Then, a sudden spike in enemy activity sent a wave of dread through the bridge. "They've detected the breach. Mara, you've got incoming," Aiden warned. On the ground, Mara and her team evaded enemy patrols, their escape route improvised as they encountered resistance. Blaster fire echoed in the narrow corridors of the base, a deadly reminder of the peril they faced. Just as the situation seemed dire, the extraction team broke through, providing the necessary cover for Mara's team to sprint towards the awaiting shuttles. They boarded just as the charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the base and crippling the enemy's operational capacity. Back on the Vigilant, Aiden breathed a sigh of relief as he saw Mara's shuttle dock safely. "Well done, everyone," he said, allowing the tension to drain from his shoulders for a moment. The debriefing was brief but intense, with reports of minor injuries but no casualties. The damage to the enemy base was extensive, ensuring no immediate threats would emerge from there. Yet as Aiden looked over the casualty reports from the diversionary forces and the cost in resources, he was reminded once again of the harsh truths of warfare. Each victory carried its price, paid in bravery, blood, and the irreplaceable currency of lives spent. Reflecting on the day's events, Aiden knew this was just one battle in a broader conflict. The victory was crucial, but the war was far from over. As the Vigilant set its course back towards Alliance space, he pondered the future, prepared for the challenges ahead, and resolved to protect the fragile peace they fought so hard to achieve. In the aftermath of their harrowing mission, the command deck of the Vigilant was unusually quiet. Commander Aiden Carter stood before the main viewport, gazing into the vastness of space, a myriad of stars twinkling back at him like distant beacons of hope and despair intertwined. "Commander," Lieutenant Kyle Briggs broke the silence, his voice carrying a note of solemnity. "The council has convened. They're ready for your debrief." Aiden turned, his expression composed yet weary. "Thank you, Kyle. Let's go make our report. It's time they heard what we've faced, and what it's cost us." Walking into the council chamber, a digital arena where the leaders of various Alliance worlds convened, Aiden felt the weight of his responsibility. The holographic faces of the council members awaited, their expressions a mix of anticipation and dread. "Commander Carter," the council's president, a venerable leader from the Tridian system, began. "You have the floor." Aiden nodded, clearing his throat. "Honored members of the council, we have successfully neutralized the threat posed by the Doomsday device. However, this victory has exposed a greater truth. The laws we abide by are no longer adequate for the challenges we face." He paused, letting his words sink in. "The law to avoid humans, to see them as only a threat, has blinded us to our real enemies. Today, I propose a new law, not of avoidance, but of cautious engagement. We must learn from humans, understand them, perhaps even cooperate under controlled conditions. Our survival in this evolving galaxy may depend on it. A murmur rippled through the council, the idea both revolutionary and fraught with controversy. A counselor from the Zarek species, their scales shimmering with the reflection of the holographic light, spoke up. Commander, your actions have saved countless lives, but this is unprecedented. How do we ensure that such engagement does not bring about our destruction? Aiden replied, through strict protocols, clear objectives, and open communication. We must establish a framework for interaction based on mutual respect and necessity, not fear. The debate that followed was intense. Every counselor had their say, from expressing stark opposition to showing cautious optimism. Through it all, Aiden stood firm, advocating for a future where fear did not dictate policy. Hours later, as the council reached a consensus, the president spoke again. Commander Carter, your proposal has been accepted, albeit with stringent safeguards. Let this day mark a new chapter in our collective history. The council will draft the Cautious Engagement Act with immediate effect. Aiden felt a mixed surge of relief and apprehension. Thank you, counselors. I assure you we will proceed with the utmost care. As the meeting concluded, Kyle turned to Aiden, a slight smile breaking through. Well done, sir. Seems you've just redrawn the map of galactic politics. Aiden chuckled wearily. Or just complicated it further, only time will tell. Back on the bridge of the Vigilant, Aiden looked out at the stars once more, contemplating the future. The galaxy was changing, and they were at the precipice of new, uncharted interactions. The law was clear, but its implications were anything but. It was a beginning, fraught with as much potential for peril as for promise. The Vigilant set its course back to Alliance space, its crew ready for whatever challenges awaited. Aiden knew that while humanity was dangerous, they were also a species of incredible potential and resilience. The galaxy watched in anticipation, waiting to see what the humans would do next. And now, perhaps for the first time, with an olive branch extended. As the stars passed by, Aiden felt a cautious optimism. This new law was a gamble, but it was also a step toward a more hopeful future, one where understanding could bridge the vast distances between stars and spirits alike. The journey ahead was uncertain, but the Vigilant and her crew were ready to navigate whatever came their way.